What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we have episode 2 of Honda Maintenance. In the last episode we replaced the oil pan gasket because there was quite a bad leak. This is a 24-year-old car, so all the gaskets in this car probably should be getting replaced, and that's what we're starting to do. We did the oil pan gasket, and today we are moving to the top side of the engine and doing the valve cover gasket. This should be a pretty simple task to switch out this valve cover gasket. There's only a few bolts on the top. We do have to pull the plug wires out of the way and then a couple of vacuum lines, and that should be it. It should come right off and we should be able to slap a new one in there in no time. That being said, let's dig into this and see how fast we can get it done. The tools that are required to get your 2000 Honda Civic EX valve cover off is basically just a 10mm and maybe a flathead screwdriver if you have clamps holding on vacuum lines. Pretty simple, very minimal tools, and it should come right off so you can get a new gasket in there. We do, however, have to clean off the gasket surfaces to make sure that the new gasket seals properly. We'll hop right into this by pulling out your spark plug wires, get them tucked out of the way. They can only go one direction because they're all different lengths and go across the top of the engine. I still like to lay them off the side, basically in the same orientation in which they would go into the engine. Now we're going to take our 10mm wrench and we're going to take off a couple of these brackets that just hold on a few of these pieces. This is just to contain or hold the spark plug wires together. Then we also have a bracket on the back here that kind of supports a vacuum line or a breather line. We're just going to remove this, set the bolt off to the side. I'm going to grab a zip tie and just zip tie that off to the side. It's not going to interfere with anything, and it's not directly attached, or it doesn't go into the actual valve cover. Just like that, just enough so it's out of the way. Now we'll grab our flathead screwdriver and take off this clamp right up here. This is also a return line or a return vacuum breather that goes into your intake manifold. Basically recirculates any crankcase pressure back into your intake. Pop that up off to the side. That is kind of an ishy hose, so I might have a hose we can replace that with. So because it's so stiff, I don't want to just crack that and break that, so we're going to remove it off the intake as well. Now we're down to just removing the 5 10mm bolts that hold the valve cover on. Like I said before, this should go pretty easy. Now that we got that all loose, we should be able to hopefully just pop this right off. It is a little warm because I had to drive it in here. It is nice and tight on there. Take these out of there as well. Just these seals for the top bolts. We'll take our flathead, maybe try and pry up just a little bit in a couple spots. We don't want to hurt or gouge the gasket surface. We just want to kind of break it free. Yeah, I can hear the glue releasing in there. There we go. Just like that. And that, my friends, is what a 24-year-old valve train looks like. It doesn't look as bad as it could because we do quite a bit of oil changes on this, or frequently enough to where it doesn't get super gummed up and nasty. Yes, it still looks kind of burnt and ishy, but hey, that's 24 years of running this car. Now we got to clean this gasket surface. There is some oil residue sitting on it and some glue around here. We just got to make sure it's nice and clean so that that new gasket seals on here really well. So I've been working on getting these little valve cover bolt seals off of these bolts. It's like a rubber seal on the inside and then metal, so that can actually sit on that. Not very easy to get off. These are super old and nasty, so what I've been trying to do is like break that rubber loose so that it can slip over, and it's very tight on here. But you just have to like keep prying on it and cutting on it, and then putting them on hopefully will be easier than this. We'll just get some oil on them, and then push them on. But yeah, like I said, this is not very easy getting these on and off, or off right now. Just trying to work it. I got one off. It's been like 15 minutes I've been fighting with them, so be prepared for that when you do this job. I've gotten the gasket surface in the valve cover all cleaned up. We're going to add some high temp silicone to a few of the corners that are prone to leaking because the bolts are up in the top corners here. There's only two and they're more in the middle of the valve cover, not so much on the outer edge. So we'll get a little bit down in here on both sides and some around each of the corners here, and just a couple little dabs that'll help hold that gasket in place so when we flip it over it doesn't just fall out. We'll get some right down in this groove as well. Again, not trying to go super crazy with it. We are going to smear this down in there a little bit with my small screwdriver, just to ensure it's actually down inside and it doesn't just all squeeze out. Some just around that corner, just a little bit, and we'll come over on this side, get some on a couple of these corners and around this last corner. Now we'll go maybe a couple spots here, get a couple of dabs inside so that the gasket stays in place when we flip the valve cover back over. Just like that. Take the screwdriver and kind of push it actually down into the groove. I will wipe off any excess as well. We don't want that spewing all over the place. This is the side where the cam gear is. You don't need that flopping all over inside there. Get that wiped off my screwdriver, otherwise it'll stay like that for a while. Now there is a specific way this goes. It might not really look like it, but there is a couple of little swirly pieces. Those go on this side or towards the back of the engine. We'll start off by pressing up in this corner by the cam gear area, and we'll follow our way that way. Make sure it pushes into those grooves where it's got the little loops all the way around the valve cover. Just like that. Went in much easier than the oil pan gasket. That one, I mean, I took this one out of the pack so it had time to kind of relax. The other one I tried to put in right out of the package and it's all looped up in a ball, so much better. Now I'm going to take a little bit more silicone on a couple of these spots. They're like a flat spot there. That might have been a little much, but it is right around the corners of the cam, so we want that right in that corner sealed up really well, because they are prone to leaking if you don't get them siliconed enough. While the gasket kind of cures with some of that silicone for a little bit, we need to press in the spark plug wire seals, or the spark plug hole seals. I believe these were put in wrong. Whenever they were put in the last time, they were sitting like this, which is backwards. Those springs should be in towards the oil. That's how that oil stays out. There was oil sitting in the actual spark plug holes and around these spark plug wires. So we're going to make sure these go in the correct direction and make sure we put a tiny bit of oil on the outside of that so it drops in really well. Just a small thin layer. Set that like that. You should be able to press this in by hand as well. Been a couple minutes now. We can drop this valve cover back into place. Get her all sealed up. And make sure you get those pressed over that. Might need my little screwdriver to finesse those into place. one. There's two, maybe, almost. There's two. Three. Just gotta get the fourth one. It almost went on itself. Just like that. And looks like it's in there good, even. Now we'll grab the bolts. You got the two long ones for in the back. We'll just get these snug and let it sit for a minute, kind of halfway tightened, and then we'll torque them down. When we look at our handy dandy manual here, valve cover bolts, 86 inch-pounds. Very hard to see, very small writing in here, 86 inch-pounds. It does not specify a certain way that you torque them down. I'm just gonna go straight across, and then we'll kind of jump back around to make sure they're all nice and snug. Doesn't take very much, especially with a 1/4 inch drive. If you overdo this, your gasket's just gonna crush out and it'll leak in no time. Make sure you torque any gaskets down to the engine specific torque specs. Now that the valve cover is back on and torqued, we'll get the remainder of the things buttoned up. Then we'll leave it sit for approximately a half an hour for that silicone to cure at least a little bit before we try and start it and have oil spraying all over inside there. You want to make sure you give the silicone and the gasket proper amount of time to set so that you don't have any leaking issues in the future. I did have a new piece of line that I can put in here as well. Yes, it is like an oil line or a high pressure line. That's not a big deal. As long as we can get a good seal on that so we don't have a vacuum leak, that is what is important. And there you have it. Valve cover gasket is all changed out. Everything is buttoned up and got a new breather tube on there. Should be all set and good to go. That being said, hopefully this video was helpful to you in changing your valve cover gasket on your Honda, or gives you motivation to do some car work on your own vehicle. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.